how can I become redundant? How can I become unnecessary in this specific operation? And how can I build a system where my team is able to work on their own without needing my approval, without needing my review, without needing my involvement at all? And even a step further is, how can I create a system where my team can teach new members of the team to do the same thing without me having to step back in and retrain and reteach the process?
Hello, Kira. Welcome to Lazy Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm glad that you're here with me today. I'm so excited to get to know more about you. Before hitting the record button on Zoom, I was kind of asking you personal questions already. And so I decided to start recording already because I asked too many questions and I want to make sure that I capture everything that you say. So today we're going to be talking about basically your story and your business, how you became successful, and a lot of different things. But before we get started, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience?
Absolutely. Kristy, thank you for welcoming me on. It's a pleasure to be invited to join you on the show. I'm Kira Shishkin, and I am the CEO of Informed, which is the news concierge for this age of misinformation overload that we live in. Our mission, this very public service mission, but we're looking to restore the dignity of being informed to people these days, as legacy news media to a great degree has really robbed people of the facts. And we can obviously talk more about Informed and that sort of mission that we are on there. But I've been an entrepreneur for a good part of my life, and this is my fourth company, but the first consumer company. So that's kind of the whole entire beast. I have pretty international upbringing. So I was born and raised in Ukraine. I sort of came of age in Israel, and then I moved to the East Coast of the United States and now on the West Coast. So it's been a lot of different worlds along the way. And super excited for this conversation. Thank you for having me.
Wow, yeah, I feel like you have a pretty interesting story. You grew up in Ukraine, moved to Israel, and then moved to the east side of the states, and now you're in the West Coast. How old were you when you moved to the US?
Yeah, I think I was in my 20s, mid 20s, and it really felt like the East Coast was like a different country from the West Coast. So I want to say I've lived in 4 countries now, even though US has been 2 of them, because the culture is so different. And actually, in between East and West, I've also had a couple of years spent in the Midwest in Chicago, which is also kind of its own planet of its own.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you because I live in Ohio, and so I was a city girl when I was in the Philippines. I live in the city now. I live in it's not really like. It's not like I don't have neighbors. We live in a subdivision out in the country, so I still have neighbors, but it's not like we're not very close together. Our houses are not like very tight. We have our own land, front yard, backyard, side yard, whatever you want to call it. And then when I went to California, like I mentioned to you before recording, it's different. Like you grew up in Israel, and you live there and also in Ukraine. And California I feel like it's a country of its own already. It's actually bigger than the Philippines. So in a way, it's kind of like a country of its own already. And it has mountains, desert, and, the beach. So I totally agree with you when you said, you lived in, you lived in the East Coast first, and then now you live in the West Coast, and you feel like you've lived in different countries. So I totally agree with you there. Yeah, cool. And then so currently you're running your fourth company, and what was your first 3 businesses?
Yeah, they've been really across industries, and they're not on the consumer side; they're very much on the business side. And so we've built crypto infrastructure for Ethereum back in the day. That was one of the the first big ventures. Um, the I've had a chance to build a book publishing business, very like real, physical product. That was really exciting. That actually was my first, trying to put it all back in a timeline. And the most recent one was actually an incubation within a large conglomerate, technology conglomerate. And it was a two-sided marketplace, expert marketplace for tax accountants and tax filers. And the conglomerate, or I call it a conglomerate, but I'm referencing Intuit, which is where I spent the last couple of years before Informed and starting informed.now.
Wow, that's awesome. So, how did you leave those three businesses? Like, did you sell them or did you have somebody take over them? Because, I understand for most serial entrepreneurs, like they don't just stick with one thing. They want to build and build and build. So how did you exit from those businesses?
Yeah, we're still active.
Oh, okay.
With the crypto infrastructure business, yeah, and it's still a meaningful project that we run. I would say we've definitely pivoted a bit recently as Ethereum changed from a proof of work to proof of stake model, and so the way we operate has definitely evolved. But that is still like an active project. The book publishing business was a much smaller venture. I started when I was really young, and it's sort of like, made itself whole, but then there wasn't a clear exit from that business. And on the incubation side, that was incubated within the environment, the enterprise environment into it. So the founding team has generally stepped away from kind of the birthing of the company, and it's now run by Intuit. And it's a huge business and a huge marketplace already within the TurboTax portfolio. And so the TurboTax Verified Pro is the name of the business, and it's public and fully operational all across America.
Right. Cool. I see. So you currently operate a few, businesses, and with your and with your other business and your current business right now, the crypto business and the news business, like how do you manage your time?
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think, when I have a lot of folks who are starting out in the entrepreneurial path asking kind of like, how do you juggle everything? I think it is impossible to juggle everything without help. And getting help and recruiting folks motivating and recruiting folks to join your mission is the most leveraged decision you can make as a builder. Like hiring the right talent is the most leveraged decision you can make. And so for me, I have my own kind of approach to hiring, but I try to actually give away tasks that I have already mastered to a team member. Instead of doing this, what I think where a lot of people fall short is they try to hire for jobs they don't understand yet themselves. So everything kind of like goes through me first, where like, okay, we're starting a company, and the first thing is we need to build the product, right? And so, I need to do that first. And as I get comfortable and good at doing it, that's when I start hiring for somebody who can come in and lighten the load. But at that point, I know how to evaluate their performance. I know what good looks like. I know what the process, how long it takes and how long it should take. And so I'm able to hand over something that I already understand to a new team member. I think where a lot of people fall flat is they try to actually hire for something they don't understand yet. And they don't know how to evaluate the success. They don't know how long things should take just yet. And it sort of sets you up for failure a little bit, because you need to understand what you're hiring for. But I think the big kind of answer to your question is hiring, motivating the right type of talent on tasks that you understand how to evaluate.
I love that. And that's actually a good approach, because I also believe that how can you give feedback on something that you don't know how to do, right? If you don't know what good looks like, what bad looks like, and you need to manage or give guidance to your team member. But as someone who has this kind of delegation approach, you already know what you know how to do it, you know how long it takes to do it, you know the quality that you want. What was your experience like when you first delegated to somebody, or did you have an experience wherein you delegated to somebody, you thought you hired the right person for the task, but it turned out that this person cannot deliver the kind of quality that you want, and it's taking them time to do what you want them to do, whereas in your case it would probably only take 30 minutes, and for them it takes them 2 hours. Did you have any experience with that?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think a lot of the hiring that I do across multiple ventures, but also onwards, is I really believe in international hiring. Like, I don't think that all the talent that I would like to access lives in San Francisco,
Right.
or that it lives in California, or that it lives in the United States. And so I think, with how international our team is, there is a really huge emphasis on communication. And that's something that I'm looking for very attentively from the very beginning. If the person is going to struggle to communicate with me, whether it's talking about progress or talking about feedback, right? Because feedback always should go both ways. If there's a struggle to communicate clearly as to like, where do you have questions? Where do you have doubts? Where do you not understand something? And where do you want to push back on something? If I sense there's an issue with communication, for me, that winds up being an early signal that this is not the right hire. Even if skill-wise they have the right skills, they don't have the right communication kind of mentality and skill set, then I know early on that might not work out.
Right.
But to give you a more specific example, we've had experiences where we would hire for someone and like they weren't able to deliver. For me, the biggest decision I have to make at that point is like, okay, I want to let them go as quickly as possible, because it's a sign to me that most likely, I don't want to like waste their time any longer, right? Or waste hours, but I think it goes both ways. But the second thing is probably, is there another job on my team that I may have for them that is better fit to their skill set? Is this just a wrong kind of task or a workflow fit? That's very frequent, very possible. Like, hey, we have this great person and we initially asked them to do data analysis, but they're really incredible at communications and like they really want to do marketing, right? Instead of losing that talent and that person, there may be an opportunity to just rethink, okay, this is the wrong task, but it's not the wrong person. So that's another thing that comes to my mind. I don't know if that answers your question, though.
Yes, yeah, totally makes sense, and I love that. I think I love what you said about if they're not the right fit for a specific task, maybe they're a fit for another task or for another role, especially if the person shares the same values as your company, right? And if this person fits all the boxes except for the task that they're doing. So I think it's also important to reevaluate their skill set and see if you can give them another chance by putting them into a different role. And I love what you said about communication as well, especially when you hire international members, right? There's always going to be language barrier, with the accent, with the way how they perceive things as well. Even sometimes with comprehension. And communication is not just about communicating verbally, but it also has something to do with understanding what was said and communicating correctly what you want to communicate, right? Like the message that you want to communicate. So would you be able to give me examples of communication problems that you experience, and what is something non-negotiable to you when it comes to communication? Like when you see this non-negotiable thing about communication, you're like, oh, let go of that person.
I think that's you're super on point with this idea that like obviously there's like sometimes language barriers, for us, it's table stakes. Like we would not be able to, just because of the line of work that we do, which is very like content, news, and media heavy. Like I kind of think of ourselves as a tech company with a media product. So for us, it's not really possible to even hire somebody who doesn't speak English extremely well. And that's a no starter. But you're right to point out that it's not just about the language. It's about the broader holistic sense of communication, because you can know the language, but if your communication style is from one culture, maybe from Japan, right, or you're from Philippines, is very different from someone who is from Midwest or or Middle East. It's very different styles, and so I think what's really important is like not just the language itself, right? That's table stakes, but like the open, proactive communication culture, like that's super important to align on. And we've been able to find people who have really strong communication styles that we care about, that we value, in environments, in cultures where they're very rare. Like they're definitely findable. Just because you are from Japan doesn't mean you're going to have that style of communication. And so to answer your question more directly, I think a non-negotiable communication style or practice is speaking your mind immediately, like when something doesn't make sense to you. I think, a lot of cultures in Southeast Asia, I would say maybe Philippines is one that we can like pick on, right? Because we've both been in touch with Filipino culture.
Right.
There is maybe a bit of a culture. And I'm curious what your thoughts on this around like keeping the issue to yourself for a little bit longer than you should, and only like being shy about bringing it up sometimes, right? If something is wrong, like the culture that we want to espouse is like say it right away, like text me, call me, like right away, escalate this. If there's an issue that you think is going to slow you down, or there's an issue that you think is going to be, important for the team to know about, don't like keep it a secret, right? And don't feel shy about it. Try to like speak up as soon as you can. So I think that like timeliness with proactive communication is really important.
Right. I love that. And that's on point. I'm from the Philippines, and I work with so many Filipinos as well. And not to like generalize everybody, right? But I think it also depends on the level of experience that the team member already had in the past. If they have experiences with working for corporate companies, or working with leaders, most of the time those type of team members or people were already trained on how to communicate proactively. But I would say majority of Filipinos, it's not that they don't want to communicate, it's just that they don't want to bother somebody. We're such people pleasers, and so I think for many of us, including me, and this was also a struggle that I had before when I used to freelance and when I used to handle a client. It's like I would do everything first in my power to solve a problem, and I will tell you what the problem was when I already have a solution for it, or if I already fix the problem. And that comes from, I think, the mentality of or culture of pleasing people, because we don't want to like disturb them or bother them, or that's one considerations to have. But the second thing is, some people, they're just shy. Sometimes they just don't know how to communicate something to somebody. And I love that you brought that up. And I feel like as a leader, when we meet team members like that, I feel like it's also an opportunity for us, to kind of like step up our leadership and, help them out, coach them and tell them, hey, this is the culture in the Philippines. I know it's like that, but here in the States, we're straightforward. Like tell us what you need and we'll give it to you straight, like it's a fast-paced kind of business.
Yeah, it's very like US people tend to be loud, and I think a lot of Filipino folks tend to be like quiet, right? More reserved. And I think the best performance is somewhere in the middle, where there's a lot of like autonomy and agency of like solution driven, of like, I want to solve this. I feel my self-worth is attached to being able to solve it, but also with like having a balance of like, hey, this has been taking me too long. Something is wrong. There's probably an easier way to do this. Let me mention this to my team. So
Right,
yeah, I think
definitely.
the optimal is somewhere in between. I think there's so much to learn when you have an international team. We are proud to have a pretty sizable chunk of our team
Yeah.
into the Philippines as well, and so we're just very happy to have so much like cross cultural learning, and it's always really enriching.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And, most of my team members as well are from the Philippines, because I know the culture, I know how to talk to them, right? But in 2023, we started hiring people from Venezuela and Africa. And, sometimes we want to work with the best of the best talents, right? But it's still sometimes for the most part, for some of them, it's kind of hard to understand, their accent. Some people, they have like a very thick, heavy accent, right? And sometimes, I have an accent as well. And sometimes some people, some applicants, they would have a very thick accent, and they pronounce the word in a way where it's very like slur. It's like it slides and it slurs. Like, okay, like I know like you're fluent in English, but if I cannot understand, like, but like I really want to hire you, but sometimes it's just a matter of, what's really important to you. Right, but we ended up still hiring on the person because the person is awesome. So, and it's also not the person's fault for having that kind of, an accent, right? It may be also our responsibility or our fault because our ears are not trained to hear those kind of accents, right? Like if you show me somebody from the Philippines with a very thick accent, I would still be able to understand that person, right? But if you show me people from like maybe British people, when we listen to them, their accent is lovely, but sometimes some words are kind of hard to understand. And I think British people, they have different accents as well, depending on where they grew up,
For
right?
sure. I think Irish. I think even though Irish people are so like native to the language, I think I'd have an easier time at this point understanding someone from the Philippines than understanding someone from Ireland, because how they speak is very hard for me to. It takes me like there's a delay. Like they say something and I have to like think for a few seconds. And like, okay, that's what they said. There's like a processing delay.
It's like you have to interpret what they said based on the keywords that you heard. And so we went on a cruise 2 weeks ago, and when you go on a cruise, there are a lot of people from different countries. Like most of the staff are from different countries, and so one of the staff is from the UK as well, and he was giving us instructions, and he's telling us something. And my husband, who is a not Native American, native English speaker, he grew up here in the States. So we're asking a question, and then this staff from the UK, he's like, "Oh, do this blah 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 blah," with the UK accent. And I told my husband, I would listen to him talk for hours because his accent is so good, but I did not understand what he said. And my husband's like, "Yeah, true. I think he's from this part of the UK, blah 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 blah." And that's the beauty of working with international people, right? Like you get to experience that kind of stuff. Even though initially it may be hard to understand them, but sometimes we just have to train our ears, right? It's not their fault for having heavy accents or thick accents, but sometimes our ears are just not trained. Even with me, like when I'm tired and sleepy, English is my second language. When I'm tired and I'm like, let's say, just waking up from bed, when my husband say something, in the English language, and I'm not giving him my full attention, I won't be able to understand him. But if you speak to me in my own language, just because my ears and my brain is already trained in that language, I can understand you even when I'm sleeping or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah. Well, thank you for hiring, international team members. I believe, it's it's a big help for them because you grew up in Ukraine, right? The living condition there, and Israel is not much of a rich country as well as compared to the US or other European or North American countries. So I love that. So since you have a few businesses, how do you make sure that you focus on things that matter the most in your business, other than delegating to people, in terms of managing your time? So because we built our business to be able to have freedom and flexibility, right? But at the beginning, we may hustle and work more than 12 hours a day to be able to achieve our goals. But in your case, how do you make sure that you're giving your attention to things that matter the most in business?
Totally. I would say it's really about, you're asking about prioritization. And I don't really feel like I have it figured out. I don't know if anyone has prioritization figured out, but I personally just have always like a running to-do list, and I try to always rank. Like, I think, I'm not sure how common or uncommon this practice is, but I think it's really important, is every time you make a list of anything, it should always be in order of priority. Like, you don't just make a list that has no order. Anything that you make a list out of should be ordered intentionally, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, with the most important things at the top. When you don't order the list, when you don't force an order onto the list, it makes it a little bit harder, and like things get away and you wind up focusing on the wrong thing. I would say always order every single list. Like, that should just be a part of like a micro habit that is always part of your sort of, your task management routine. And so I always apply that to my to-do list. And for me, like, I always try to evaluate, okay, like, I might not be able to get the whole to-do list done, right? It's a lot of items on it, but I want to just chirp up 1 or 2 or 3 from the very top today. And I should find a way to almost like penalize myself from doing the last item before doing the first. Like, you need to sort of keep your discipline to the very first couple of items on the list. And I update that list daily. So I don't let that go stale, because I need to, almost on a daily basis, reorder and rearrange like what is the most important thing today. I'm always thinking about every process that I involve my team in, especially as how can I become redundant? How can I become unnecessary in this specific operation? And how can I build a system where my team is able to work on their own without needing my approval, without needing my review, without needing my involvement at all? And even a step further is, how can I create a system where my team can teach new members of the team to do the same thing without me having to step back in and retrain and reteach the process? So I'm trying to create fully autonomous kind of systems for marketing, for operations, for support, for kind of outreach, for all these different components,
right?
And create them, fully autonomous, not just within the team that doesn't require my attendance, but even as new team members join, they're able to onboard entirely without me. That allows me to focus on my to-do list, because if I still was like managing and babysitting the old processes, I would never get to my actual to-do list.
Yeah, that's I definitely agree with that. Going back to what you said earlier, you said that you master a task first, and then you delegate that to somebody so that you know how to give feedback and you know when it's quality work. What about for like projects or tasks that are important in the business that you don't know how to do? Do you just hire an expert for that, or do you tend to learn it and try to do it on your own before delegating it?
I think some level of learning is necessary, where like you don't have to necessarily become an expert in this new task, but you have to like put a good hearted effort in trying to understand at least the basics. And I think that will come as you work with an expert, or as whatever you want to pursuing. It will inevitably come. But you do want to I don't recommend shying away from learning something new, even if it's intimidating. You need to get a little bit involved. So, for example, a very live example from today and from what we're currently going through in the business is we're trying to figure out social media, because it's a really important channel for us to share our mission and our story with the rest of the world. Frankly, I don't know anything about it. I don't know the first thing. And so I'm shopping around very actively for different experts and people who are in my own community who have been successful in that specific kind of bucket of storytelling on social media across different platforms. But in the process, I'm also keeping my own diary of things I'm learning, things that I'm figuring out. I think hiring an expert is not a bad idea, but I wouldn't hire the first person that claims to be an expert. I would really shop around very actively, and I would give myself the time to say, well, I'm not going to hire anybody until I talk to 10 experts, have those kind of introductory calls to figure out, at least from the surface level, who seems to be the most legitimate. And I think you can get a lot from those introductory conversations and the way people can communicate. It's a very strong signal of their actual quality and expertise, is trying to see how they communicate. If they set expectations realistically, or if you talk to 10 people and 2 of them are being very dramatic, right? They're like, we're going to solve all your problems, we're going to take care of everything. I would stay away from that.
If they're over-promising.
Over-promising, yeah. You can right away tell, okay, so here's the average promise, and this person is, promising a lot more. So just kind of being attentive, but I think shopping around, a lot of people shy away from. I think if you're entering an arena where you don't understand anything, try to learn by having a lot of calls, shopping around, and before you settle in on an advisor or expert or a partner, try to find a way to get some exposure to that category of person before you make a decision. I think the other piece is trying to align incentives, right? So it's much easier to, when you're hiring a person for a task you already understand, you know how to incentivize them because you know what good looks like, you know how to figure that out because you understand the task. For a new task, you may not know how it all works just yet and how long it's going to take and how long it should take, but you should be able to say, okay, well, here's my goal for social media marketing, right? Can you help me reach this goal? If you can, I want to reward you, with a full incentive, right? Whether that's an equity compensation, a financial compensation, sort of a commission, but that's where, the compensation is attached to the output, to the result. And so maybe you get a little bit upfront, but we want to create an environment where we're both positioned to succeed. Our agreement says that very literally in financial terms, where if we reach the goal that I'm trying to reach, that's when you, as a partner, advisor, expert coming in, that's where you also get to the kind of output of getting fully compensated for the work, fully rewarded.
Right, yeah. Exactly. So at what point in your business did you hire someone to help you? A lot of people, yeah, because a lot of people, they always ask me, Kristy, at what point should I hire? Is it when I achieve my financial goal, or is it at the beginning of my business, or is it when I'm stressed? In your own opinion, or in your business, at what point did that happen?
As soon as possible, right? Because this idea of hiring is the most leveraged decision you can make. The sooner you make a hire that, obviously, granted, it's someone that you're proud to hire, right? Bad hires are bad at any point. If you make the wrong hire, it doesn't matter when you make it. It's gonna hurt. It's gonna slow you down. But making the right hire, the sooner the better. Because as soon as you can get them onboarded and figuring out, you get to buy all that time back. You get all that time back to focus on other things. And you're going to need that. I don't think I would wait to hire until you're successful, because you'll be successful faster if you're able to hire faster, right? You can take off things off your plate that you drudge, things you don't like, right? A lot of maybe the admin stuff, a lot of the operations. you should take those off your plate as soon as possible. But you should hire and enrich your team as quickly as you can, because frankly, I don't believe that you can get to success quickly enough before you burn out without having strong support. And so I would focus on that really early on and take the time, right? Because it will take time to find the right person. It's not going to be immediate. You're going to have to shop around the same way that I was suggesting you should shop around if you're hiring a partner.
Right, exactly. I love that. And also, you mentioned before, before we record this interview, you mentioned that you built your business in so many lazy ways. So can you tell us about about that? Like, what other lazy way did you do to build your business aside from hiring the right person, delegation? Did you use any automation tools, or what kind of help did you need to have in order to become successful?
Totally. Well, I think being lazy in the spirit of the lazy entrepreneur, right? Not really lazy.
Not literally lazy, like a bum person.
It's very important, very important. And I think it's so part of the laziness that I think we speak of is like this crave of efficiency, right? It's like, that's non-negotiable. You need to create efficiency. You cannot, I don't think you can succeed with tedious and, long time-consuming tasks or processes. I think it's essential. Like, it's not even optional. Like, if you want to succeed, you're going to need to find ways to be extremely efficient. For me, it's been always a combination of tech and talent, and like this like systematic thinking. So I mentioned a lot around the areas of being lazy around creating systems in the business that don't require you.
Right.
Like, that is ultimate laziness, and it's ultimately necessary to do that in order to, to free your hands to do more and to succeed. You're going to have to create systems that don't require you. That is, absolutely essential. But a big part of it also is not just about people, it's about the technology. And I would say shopping around technology is even easier than shopping around experts or shopping around when you're hiring, but people don't do it enough, right? They just sort of like find the first tool that looks like they can do what you need them to do, and they're just, okay, perfect, this is it. Shop around the tools. Like, if you find a tool you like, right? Maybe it's for LinkedIn automation, right? So I've shopped around a lot before finding the tool that I really liked. Or if it's for, an AI tool for creative writing, like, shop around. Most of them are also free, or they offer a free trial. Don't settle on the first tool that you find. Really find the best tool for the job, because there's a huge cost, time-wise and stress-wise and trust-wise, to using the wrong tool. Like, invest the time, right? If you're looking for a great tool for creative writing, don't just go to ChatGPT and say, okay, this is good enough. No, like, dig around until you find Claude, which is much better at creative writing than other models, but you should try it and you should take the time. Maybe it's a weekend project. Maybe it's a project you can even give to one of your team members, but find the best software for the job, right? So, for example, I recently went through a process of finding the best LinkedIn automation software, which is something I care about a lot and I think is really important, because LinkedIn is a platform that's designed to be automated. You should try to have a lot of that outreach done on autopilot. And it took me a lot of calls, with different companies, a lot of, trialing, free trials to find a company that I admire, which is Dripify. It's actually a Ukrainian company. And I have an affiliate partnership with them, and I think they're incredible. I think they're really, really best in class company. It took months of like softly, playing around different things to find the best. But now looking back, the difference between the software I use with Dripify and like the second up runner-up competitor is night and day. Like, I think if I went with the other software, I would have given up, canceled it, and I've just dropped the entire process. But now I'm able to run on an autopilot and step away entirely from an entire system. And there are not even any people in there. It's fully just the right software configured in the right ways.
Right.
I'm talking a big game about Dripify. I should probably drop my referral link.
Yeah, we'll put the link in the show notes. Wow, if there's something I'm getting from you based on what you shared so far is, shop around. Don't settle for anything less. However, of course, there are times that we need to like act quickly, right? Has that ever happened to you where you didn't have enough time to like shop around because you need it immediately, or are you just the type of person where you like anticipate that you need this in the next 3 months, and so before that, before that, time comes, you're like, okay, I need to prepare in advance.
No, it's definitely happened to me many times where like I need a solution like running right now.
Mhm.
But sometimes, when you're in that situation, don't get to an annual contract, right? So when we started in our operations, we used a very, very cheap provider for like SMS texting.
Right.
And so we were doing that because we needed something cheap, easy, and straightforward to test with. But from the very beginning, we had a lot of doubts if this is going to be the right software for us, a right partner for us. And so over time, that understanding has only been strengthened, that was not the right fit. I think they had a great team. I think they were a strong company. They were just not the right partner for what we were trying to do. Partially actually because they didn't have enough automations, because that's what we care about quite a bit. So I use that experience as, hey, don't commit annually, right? Don't over-promise that partnership. Make sure that it's sort of at arm's length. And as you go through that experience, write down what you wish was different. So that as you shop around, you realize, okay, well, I'm liking these things about the current partner, but here are like 2-3 things that I need to change. These are table stake changes. And so, right, the automations was one for us. The certain commerce features were really important for us. And so as I was going through that relationship with our first initial partner, where I knew there wasn't perfect alignment in terms of service and our need, I was writing down, okay, well, this is good. What could make it perfect? And then you go into these new shopping conversations and you figure out, hey, I have a lot of the things already. Can you offer this additional thing? That's really important, because you don't want to start from scratch when you go shopping.
Right.
You want to start from a reflection on where have things not worked so far.
I love that. That's a pretty good insight. There's a balance in everything, right? So if you can, if you don't have enough time to shop around for what you need immediately, then like find the fastest and easy way to solve a problem, but don't commit long term, especially if it's not something that you have done your due diligence, right? All right, so as we wrap up, so I normally ask my podcast guests to ask a question to my next guest, and you are that next guest. So the question that my previous guest left for you is, if you could have dinner with someone, who would it be and why?
Totally. I love that question. And I think I'd love to have dinner with my 13-year-old self. I think my 13-year-old self was going through a really rough time growing up. And
were you in Ukraine or Israel during that time?
I just moved to Israel. That was like a point of pivot, a point of a lot of change. And I wish I could go back and just comfort that kid and say, like, you're gonna have it so figured out. You're gonna be just fine. This experience that there's a lot of change, a lot of transition, is going to make you so much stronger than you realize if you let it. So let it make you stronger. Don't let it, get you down. And I would love to have that conversation with myself.
Wow, you're making me teary. It's like healing your inner child, right? Yeah, wow. I feel like that's another, topic for another episode. Just hearing that story when you were 13 years old. Now I'm interested to know like what happened. But thank you for that answer. I love that very personal answer. So now it's your turn. What question do you want to ask my next guest?
Yeah, I love this practice. I think it's such a great idea. I would love to, this is something I'm thinking a lot about these days because of building Informed, and that's the spirit behind Informed. I would really encourage, you, whoever the next show guest is, to think about where are areas in your life where your attention is being hijacked. because there's no shortage of them. Like in our modern culture, there's a lot of attention grabbing, attention hijacking, attention hostaging. I would just encourage you to think like, what is an area in your life where your attention is being monopolized, is being kind of held hostage, and how can you get it back for your own sake?
I love that. That question is a topic on its own. So, so maybe for my next guest, that should be the topic that we talk about. I'm just kidding. But thank you for that wonderful question. So, Kira, I love everything that you shared. Thank you for sharing some amazing insights and for adding value to our listeners. Where can people find you online?
It's been such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm really easy and friendly to find on LinkedIn. I am the only Kira Shishkin in the world. So Kira Shishkin on LinkedIn is a great way to reach out if you have a question for me. If there's any way I can be helpful to you, would love to be in touch. So just shoot me a LinkedIn directly. And the project that we're building right now, which is Informed, is really easy to find at www.informed.now.
I love it. Thank you so much for your time, Kira.